When you make the choice to live a child-free life, there are a whole lot of things you just are never going to experience. Do you ever find yourself wondering, man, I kind of feel like I am missing out just a little bit on this thing right over here? In today's video, Vanessa and Xander are going to talk about all the things they feel like they are missing out on because they have made the choice to live the child-free life.
This is definitely not a decision that we've taken lightly. We know that deciding not to have kids, it's a huge sacrifice, and we've really thought through the specifics of what we'd be missing out on. So we're gonna list those out.
I feel like I don't spend a lot of time thinking about all the things I'm missing out on because we're not having kids. And when people do mention some of those things to me, I don't know, they're just not a big deal to me, or I just don't mind missing out on them.
First up, we know that children would bring more love into our lives. It's really touching to hear parents talk about how they never realized they could love someone as much as they love their child.
What a beautiful child. Prominent forehead, short arms, tiny nose. That baby is a shroot. That baby is mine.
Or how they had a second child and realized their heart just kept expanding more and more. We know we'll be missing out on a really beautiful and unique kind of love.
Definitely a huge, huge sacrifice.
I will obviously never experience the love that a mom has with her children. But again, I don't feel a desire to experience that. Maybe that's really weird. Maybe I'm just like a super weird person. But knowing that I'm gonna be missing out on that love between a parent and a kid, okay, I don't know, it just doesn't get me anywhere. It doesn't make me feel anything.
And there's also the experience of creating a new little human. Like, it's such a miracle.
I like how you called it a little human and not a baby.
I did. A little tiny human. Kind of selfishly, I would love to see what our mix of genes would end up creating. Like, would our child have Xander's hazel eyes that always seem to change color? They're so beautiful. Would they be tall like him or a little shorty like me?
I will say this is one aspect that I have thought about, like if we did have a kid, what would it look like? But then I just look at Michael's baby pictures and my baby pictures and I'm like, it would just be a combination of something like that. And I'm not curious enough to create a baby.
Third, we'll miss being able to see each other play the role of mom and dad. We know we'd be able to look at each other in totally new ways and marvel at what great parents each other is. It would definitely deepen our love and admiration and respect for each other, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I always kind of feel like, though, that everyone assumes that you're going to be a good parent. I just don't think that about myself. I think Michael would be a better dad than I would be a mom. He has more of the attributes or more of the character traits. I get to see him in an uncle role, and he's really good with kids. Like, better than I am with kids, actually.
Now, fourth, this is something that maybe might sound a little bit silly, but I personally get sad thinking about not being able to tell our parents that they're going to be grandparents. So between the two of us, we have 4 amazing parents who would make really incredible grandparents.
That is something I have absolutely never thought about. They're so right. I am never going to be telling my mom and my stepdad that they're going to be grandparents. I mean, they're already grandparents many times over with my siblings' children.
And sometimes I think about what it would be like to break the happy news to them, all the different ways that we could do it. I know that my dad would definitely cry like a little baby, and I would love to see that.
Now you can both open your eyes, turn it over, and look at it.
And then seeing them as grandparents would be so touching. So it's a really, really tough thing to miss out on.
The moments that you would get to tell them would be so fleeting. Like, I'm sure they would be fun and exciting, but then it's like, it's all over within just a few moments, and then that's it. Man, listening to their list, I feel like they're more sad about missing out on these things than I ever would be. But that's okay. I'm just a different kind of person.
Fortunately, we are both oldest children, so hopefully they will be getting that from one of the other siblings. There's also becoming grandparents ourselves. That's another role that we would never be able to experience.
And 6, kind of along similar lines, like, we do worry about getting older and being lonely. It would just be the 2 of us for the rest of our lives, and there wouldn't be anyone to take care of us when we're older.
People always equate elderly people with being lonely. People get periods of being lonely no matter what age they are. You can be in a room filled with people, you can have tons of friends and be completely lonely on the inside. Having people around you is more than just having family around you. Sometimes we're closer to people that are actually not our own family. And I understand that your friend group is probably going to get smaller as you get older, but let's just say if you go live in an assisted living facility or a long-term care facility, you're living with like tons of other people. I'm always confused because do people just assume that no one's going to be friends with anyone else? Like, if you're all kind of in the same boat and you're all kind of experiencing and going through the same phase in life, isn't that something that actually brings people together? Wouldn't you then have an opportunity to make friends with all these other people that you now live with? I mean, sure, the relationships are going to be different, but you're also in a different phase of your life. So the expectation of what you're getting from other people and what you can give other people is obviously going to be different. I don't worry about being older and lonely. Also, as an introvert, I like being alone.
7th is that we'd just be able to avoid all those questions or judgments about our decision. We would have made the normal decision that everyone else would have, and so no one would ever think that we're immature or selfish or anything like that.
That is very true. We would get a lot less questions if we just did what was normal and acceptable in society. However, if you really didn't enjoy being a parent and you were going through all that just so you wouldn't get questions, you wouldn't be happy either. And then you also get the opportunity to educate people about being child-free, and that it's an amazing way to live life.
And finally, this is really closely related, but there's just that feeling of fitting in, doing what you're supposed to do, having kids at the same time our friends are having kids, not feeling left behind or odd man out.
Yes, us child-free people tend to be a little bit on the outside and we don't fit in with what, society deems as being normal. However, we have our own communities and our own groups and we all fit in here. Our community is just a little bit smaller. And I think if you're a parent, you don't really get away from that because I think there's actually a lot of pressure on parents to be a certain way or to raise kids a certain way. And they're getting judged all the time for being a parent too. Speaking of being on the outside, I talk about that in this video right here.